The Atlantic hurricane season is starting to reach its peak, and we already have another area to watch that could become a hurricane. Where that goes and when will be coming up. Alrighty, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nate, and welcome back to another weather forecast discussion, this time for September 2nd, 2023. Now, we do have some activity here in the Atlantic, as you can see. We still have Idalia over here near the Bermuda general vicinity. We also have Tropical Storm Gert, and then we have newly designated Tropical Storm Katia off of the coast of Africa, as well as this new disturbance that we are going to be watching as this heads off into the main development region by the later portions of this week. Now, I want to remind everyone here that we are starting to get into the heart of the hurricane season. Usually the peak is sometime around September 10th, and that is about 8 days away here. So we are currently on schedule to see an increase in tropical activity. And the other thing that I want to mention here is the kind of groundwork out ahead of where a lot of these tropical systems could be heading off towards, especially if they're going to be heading off into the Caribbean or if they're heading off towards the United States. We have very favorable sea surface temperatures across the board. Anywhere that's realistically in the yellow is favorable for tropical development, and of course anything in the red is further favorable for tropical development. The other thing I want to mention is the ocean heat content. This is how much heat actually spans down into the ocean waters, and this is essentially the energy in which tropical systems can actually feed from to, of course, intensify further. And you can see there's a lot of it extending all the way over up the coast of the Carolinas, down towards the Bahamas, and then further out into the main development region here. And so this is going to be something to watch out for, where this tropical systems can move into and eventually try to intensify is what we are going to want to watch. So as we take a look at the satellite here, we can currently see that we have Idalia over here. This is currently starting to get more and more convection around Bermuda, so this might be something to watch out for as well. We have Gert that's over here spinning off in the middle of the Atlantic, and we also have Katia on the side part of your screen. It's kind of hard to see it, but it is all the way over there on the right. So Idalia, Gert, and then Katia over on the side. And this is another view here off of the coast of Africa. You can see Katia that is off over here, and then you can see this new wave that's starting to move off of Africa. You can kind of already see that it's got a little bit of a swirl, but it is not fully circular. It is more kind of like a little bit of a wave that is kind of oriented from the southwest to the northeast. So until it can become fully circular, we're probably not talking about a tropical system as of this moment right now. Now, I want to talk about the forecast track here for all the storms that have been designated by the National Hurricane Center. We'll start with Idalia. You can see that we currently have tropical storm warnings over here for areas of Bermuda. This is anticipated to make that turn off. This is expected to make that turn off towards the north like anticipated, but it is, according to the National Hurricane Center, going to be a little bit further off to the east than what some of the models previously said. We're talking about areas over here near Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. So all my viewers that are over there, definitely something to watch out for here as we get towards the mid to late stages of this week. We are going to be uploading a video once again on Monday, so we will give you guys an update as this continues to get further and further along. We also have Gert here that's going to be moving about. This one's not forecasted to last for that long, so we won't really be talking about that one unless if it continues to stay alive by the time we get back here on Monday. And then we also have Katia, which is expected to continue to move about, but it's going to move further and further out into sea, so it really isn't going to impact a whole lot of people besides the fishes. So let's take a look at the Euro model. Let's see how the Euro model takes Idalia off to the north. This is going to be really interesting here because the cone of uncertainty, as we saw, expands all the way up, and it is kind of a pretty broad area as to where it can go. So the Euro is going to tell us here as to how things continue to move about. And as this thing moves off towards the north, we're talking about Monday into Tuesday, it becomes a lot larger of a storm, but not really as tropical. You can see there's not a whole lot of greens and yellows that are surrounding this thing, and the wind field is pretty broad, so we can expect to see a lot of rip currents, if anything. But if this does make impacts to land, we could probably see a lot of gusty winds along the coastline as well. So something to keep in mind as this moves on through. But I want to also mention here, we do have... Now, let's take a look at the wind shear and how things are moving about. We have a trough that's going to be digging through the eastern portions of the United States here very shortly. That is going to impact Idalia because this upper level trough is actually going to move over the system and try to steer it north. You can see how it's starting to kind of buckle just like this. And this shear that's going from south to north is actually going to pick up Idalia and move it that way. However, what happens afterwards is the trough actually kind of sits in place a little bit and maybe even moves off a little bit further towards the south, which means that the shear could actually steer Idalia back off towards the north and west. We'll have to see once again how this trough interacts with Idalia. But as of right now, the forecast for Idalia is it is going to move off to the north. Whether it moves off to the north and west and goes around this upper level trough is still to be determined. Now, one thing that I'm going to show you guys here is the ensemble members here from the EPS. This is the Euro version of all this. We're going to show you with Idalia first as to how widespread the actual ensemble members actually are. You can see there's a lot of inconsistency with where this thing could potentially go, which means that we can't exactly rule out any sort of impact towards the northeastern United States. But the other thing that we can note here from the ensemble members is you could see that new area of development, that new tropical wave that's going to be moving on through. This is going to probably form into a hurricane starting sometime around next weekend. We're going to really get a good grip as to what exactly this is going to do, actually, according to this model, sometime on Wednesday into Thursday. And, of course, as this thing continues to move off, it heads off to the west, so we can't really rule out anything for the Lesser Antilles. We can't rule out anything for the Bahamas, and we certainly cannot rule out anything for the east coast of the United States. So this is going to be something that we're really going to want to watch out for. And, of course, as we continue to move off past in towards the beginning of next week, this is when stuff starts to become inconsistent. So any of these little blobs is really possible. Any sort of these solutions are realistic. And so something to kind of just note is that we are going to want to watch out for how this thing continues to develop. We take a look at the GEFS. This says the same exact thing. Idalia, pretty widespread. That new area of development, however, it's a lot further down to the south, which means this could potentially enter into the Caribbean and make impacts towards Hispaniola as well as Puerto Rico. So Windward Islands as well as Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and all sorts of those areas are going to need to watch out. And once again, all these areas here in these orange is a possible outcome as this thing continues to move on through. One thing that I do want to mention here with this storm is that there is going to be something that's going to limit this thing from developing at least until the mid to latter stages of this week. And that is because there's still a lot of dry air that is present across the main development region right now. A lot of these brown contours is dry air, and a lot of these greens are these moist contents. And you can see that there's still an abundance of dry air. But once we start to get towards areas where that ocean heat content starts to spike, we can potentially start to see this increase in activity, and we could potentially be talking about a hurricane once again. The other thing that I want to mention here is the steering shear. Why is this thing going to continue to stay as far south, whereas Katia is actually going to move a little bit further north? The reason for that is because there's actually a high pressure system over here off of the coast of Portugal. This is going to steer Katia up further north, but Katia is going to create a lot of anticyclonic shear of its own, which is actually going to push down and keep this tropical wave down into the main development region. So that is going to continue to keep it on its westerly track. And then there's going to be a new high pressure system that's going to develop here. Look at how this thing really starts to kind of get a hold of it. This is our Bermuda High, and this is going to continue to sit over this area. Another scenario that I want to talk about that may not be as likely, but once again, we're so far out that we can't really tell, is this run from the GFS right here. You can see our storm starts to form. It moves into the Lesser Antilles sometime around Saturday, Friday into Saturday. It rapidly intensifies into a major hurricane, hits Puerto Rico, moves up the Bahamas, and then it moves off the coast of the United States here. You can see it could potentially impact the Carolinas. But the interesting thing to note is how far off to the west this high pressure system is. And depending upon that placement right there, depending upon where that high pressure system sets up, you know, you can even see a couple frames before, it even is a lot further off to the west than when it actually moves off further east a few days afterwards. So depending upon where that high pressure is can really determine as to where this aforementioned hurricane is going to make landfall. So I'll keep you guys updated. Once again, we'll have a video uploaded on Monday. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like. Subscribe if you're new. Turn on notifications. Share this with friends and family and on social media. Also follow me on social media. Link will be in the description down below. Now, if this thing continues to become more and more like it's going to be a threat sometime soon, we could start storm mode as early as Wednesday and then start uploading every day up until this system moves on through. So thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, everyone, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace out.